We're live, I think.
We're live.
Are we? Anyway, look, this show is already #1 hated by Twitter feminists before we even done this before we've even done our first live show. I'm headed to Utah. It's White Boy Summer, okay? You know, it's not just Pride Month. It's White Boy Summer, okay? And I'm hoping to find some good Mormons over there. So maybe, Ashton, you familiar with soaking?
Oh God, yeah. I remember I went to Revolution 2023 and I met a Mormon there. I just recently saw like a TikTok trend about it, and I just asked him, so like, what's soaking? He's like, oh, you know what that is? Come on.
Okay. Well, anyway, we're going to get into this first. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Civil Offense. My name is Ahmed and Ignis, and today we'll be discussing Pride Month. As expected, there are cultural issues being pushed by schools, corporations, and the state. So, well, if you're a hater of us, or if you just don't know, you may be asking where, for what purpose? We're finding that out right now. I'm here with 5-time Civil Offense lightweight champion, Ignis. What's going on, man?
Lightweight. I'm hoping to hopefully get into the media weight. Also, you repeated yourself 3 times there. Corporations, the state, and schools. Come on, man.
Okay. Well, the state looks, it controls those other 2 things, but they're really just another part of it. But yeah, that's fair enough. Update on myself. Like I said, going to Utah. Hopefully, White Boy Summer is not, unchecked this time around. But some announcements, just as always, go to amendmally.com and sign up for my email list for the latest updates. Check out Civil Offense on Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google. This is also streaming on Rumble right now, I'm pretty sure, because I clicked, I did the whole setup for that. So hopefully it's on Rumble as well. But yeah, just in case I ever get disappeared on here, make sure to go follow Civil Offense on there as well, because this is linked in the description. And remember to like, comment, share the show. And also, we have a Discord. I did link it in my last video that I did with Garen, but I did not link it here because, I don't want to make sure any feds that are watching live, you got to go watch my other episode before you can join the Discord. But I'm going to add everyone in our Discord right now, telling them we're live. That's how you get the latest updates, the real latest updates. Yes, my website gives you the latest updates, but the Discord gives you the latest updates. So let me start this show by saying that Ignis over here has no hate or feelings of disgust towards the community we're talking about today.
This is true. They do not. The actions of how to phrase this, it's just like the stuff like in front of children, some of the stuff we're going to show today, that like visceral disgust reaction, but like just basic homosexuality stuff, none of this queer shit. The homosexuals, they're fine, they don't discuss.
Oh wow, you're already doing that. Okay, well, let's get some. Oh well, hold up, Garen's in here. He's saying missing work for this. Garen, what's up, bro?
Oh, that's worth it. Yeah, you're gonna
missing work, bro. You took work off. Are you gonna come in here? Are you gonna come in here if I invite you, man?
Are you gonna crash the show? Are you gonna crash the show?
Yo, Jason's in here. What's up, Jason?
Hello.
We got the violin enthusiast. I wonder who that is. He was first though. I'll give him that, even though I didn't play his thing first because Garen's just our boy, right? Yeah. So, like I said, Ignis has no feelings of hate or disgust for this community, right? So
what does that mean
Anyway, we're starting off with Pride Month in schools. Okay, this stuff is in schools. Obviously, I mean, like I've seen these videos on Twitter. I don't know if you have, but we're about to pull some of those up. So basically, the teachers, as always, I mean, like, what have we been talking about, before when we talked about the whole drag show stuff on our previous episodes? They're in schools, talking to these kids in a certain way, also putting up certain propaganda material, as you can see right here. And this is our first one. I think this was specifically posted like by a school, like straight up, or somebody that has to do with that. Don't go dox, anybody that doesn't need to be doxed. We don't want to bring anything bad on kids or anything like that.
Like the kids' faces are in censored, and it's just like, it's really bad. But it's like the schools put this out. So it's just like, man, that's rough. For the kids.
Garen is just taken in to come comment. Oh, yeah, there we go.
I can imagine this happening at my school with just like the English teachers. The English, like 100%, it was the English teachers who had this.
The ones that got pregnant?
It's English teachers who are either really traditional and then leave for half the semester or like half the year because they're pregnant, or they're just this.
These are the ones that stayed around.
Yeah.
These are the ones that stuck around and did not get pregnant, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a competition. between them. And
Yeah.
then the ones
So,
that stick
but
around are this.
I can imagine the kids are having like, like as a kid, you're dancing, you're having a fun time with a bunch of colors. Obviously, that's very stimulating to the mind. You have some funny guy dressed in that. And, obviously as a kid, you're watching this and you're not really thinking like as much of it as somebody that, let's see, these public schools are killing kids' privacy. Time to end public schools. Well, the state's not going to do that anytime soon. But yeah, I don't like the idea of public schools either. But yeah, no, obviously we have this here. What's the next one on that? I mean, you can see the gate, like the not. Well, go back actually, because you can see the flag in the background on that presentation. That is the updated, not the Microsoft updated pride flag, but that is the updated pride flag.
Like the black and brown in there.
You don't even have the sex workers one on there, but you have the intersex.
Oh yeah, the one that the red umbrella that totally isn't just a puckered asshole.
So yeah, I mean, like in public schools, you're getting presentations giving to kids on this stuff, right? Okay, so what's the next one on this?
Oh, it looks like someone has something on the comments too. It's just some pretty bad singing, or just like you know what? Maybe it's some beautiful singing, but the audio system is a school audio system.
All right, what do we got on the next one here?
I mean, there's this in the comments, which I don't think you even said this to me.
No, we'll keep that out. So anyway, but on that specifically, I mean, it's promotion. Like, what else can you call it at that point when you have an assembly basically for this, in the same style that you would for when you're trying to tell kids to stay off drugs, but instead now you're telling them, well, maybe there are some like ones that you can put in yourself a little sooner than later.
Yep. And bringing up the other one that
you said. Okay. Let's see. Gotta love the state sexualizing children in order to warp people's frame of reference into acting towards reform as a means to stop it. Right. Yeah. Thank you, Garen. That is definitely a one right there. Yeah. Because I mean, it's like, you have a lot of libertarians that are right now basically like even Michael Malice, like they'll say like, okay, well, the states are best means of using might against these people. But it's, that's actually not, extremely true. I mean, like, yes, it's harder to combat this in a society where the state has organized in this way, but at the same time, it's sort of like you're looking at it, and I mean, what's the state really going to do about it, right? Like what, like the people that are controlling the state obviously is like the people that are have leverage over each other, and they're like technicians just trying to like control how the state operates. So they're not really like focused on oh, I think children being harmed is bad, so like I'm gonna be able to do something about this. Like rather you have the state as an organization is essentially just going to do what it needs in order to subsist itself. So if that means doing this to children, it means doing this to children.
Yeah, I mean, like there's like you can have more than one front. Like there's developing like counter economic systems in order so that you eventually develop a technology that makes the state obsolete without its consent. In the meantime, we can make there are certain actions that make life more preferable while living under the state, but you definitely want to focus more on actions that will lead towards liberty, and then secondary actions that will lead towards greater, what I've referred to before as utility. So like even though the state enslaves us all, there are like I would rather live under a state that doesn't infringe on right to keep and bear arms as much as one that does more. Every
and I mean,
infringement.
Like we got into this in another episode we did, like the ANCAP versus Agorist thing. But as Garen commented here, he's just at it with this. He's saying, vote for my candidate and I'll save you from the corrupt libtards who own the government. I mean, like that's kind of the point with it. It's like, of course, like we don't want to live in a system where this is happening. It's just the thing is, it is, and the government, rather than being something that you can just take over and say like, okay, this is how we're going to stop it. Instead, they sort of use that as a psyop to say like, look, it's easy, just vote for this Republican or whoever, and suddenly it'll stop for you if you do that.
Yeah, it's like the easiest metric to look at is spending, even though that doesn't encapsulate everything. And then some people, I don't understand the people who just like don't care about spending at all. But it's just like, let's go back to pre-COVID, even though spending was jacked up under Trump way more than it was under Obama, which was jacked up way more than it was under Bush, and then just going back and back and back and back. It's I don't even have like a word to describe how ridiculous it is to think that just the pendulum swinging doesn't mean that it's still moving in one direction. But
and it always will.
It's march through history when it comes to the expansion of the state.
All right, so let's take a look at this next video, though. We got the Richard Hanania one. Is that how you say his last name?
I don't know. Sounds kind of prideful to me.
Yeah, let's see. So he wrote, how could kids want to become gay? What indoctrination? They're just preaching acceptance. No kid actually derives status from changing their sex. Yeah, so, I mean, we'll take a little more look at that video.
At least they didn't do this every day for a month. They're saying Pride Day.
I mean, they got to go home at some point. It's summer. You know, what are we gonna have? Summer school? Summer camp? Hey, whoa! You need a little bit of a, like, if you're super straight, you actually need the black and orange. Oh, whoops! You need the black and orange on you. How do I do? Yeah, okay. You need the black and orange on you if you're super straight, right?
Oh my god! I should give it that meme.
As a little triangle on your shirt to expose yourself as who you are. Let's see. So Legacy Zach, what's up, Zach? Precedent is always set by the prior incumbent. Well, I mean, in a sense, I guess, like, you know, people will be almost more receptive to the state taking these bigger measures when it's done rather like all at once. You know, more incrementally, and seeing like, okay, well, you know, they're not really like noticing it as much. Like, if society is to be planned in a way like this, you would want to do sort of like that frog boiling in a pot example, rather than just, you know, all at once where people are kind of like lashing out at it. You don't want any sort of violent protest. So that's kind of how you control a society. But
it's a very fine art that they never get completely wrong, but that they fuck up a lot of the time. Because I love pointing out that these are not very impressive people. What I think is sort of a mistake sometimes is to think of the state as this like all-encompassing entity that perfectly knows how to oppress the people. And it's just like, no, it's just, they can be extremely inefficient. They can be extremely terrible, but people are so averse to change and so averse to just like getting rid of like a few material comforts that they get through the inefficient production of the state that they don't necessarily want to shake the system too much. They don't want to rock the system. There's too much investment into it. We live in a society. Thank you, Jason. Society. Let's see. Okay, so real quick, let's see. I mean, I want to get into that talk later, sort of like how this is going to work, because we actually do have more to talk about. We're going to be talking about ESGs, okay? Like, for the people that are into that, we actually are going to be getting more into that, and I hope we can sort of get to the bottom of like exactly how this stuff is working, because there's a lot more into it. There's a lot of different power structures here. So let's see. But first, I wanted to talk about a tweet that I saw, because you know, there's other forms of grooming in school, right? The military. I mean, if you didn't already know. And you know, the military is gay, so this is also a problem we want to talk about, right? Let's see. Share screen. Okay, so it's going to show you my side of this if I do that. Okay, so I'm going to go to Joshua Reed equals Twitter. If the photo on the left is grooming, what do you call the photo on the right? So if the photo here is grooming, right? And we right now have been calling out, you know, the flags in the classrooms just for a few minutes here. I mean, that's like the first time I've ever said anything about it. Honestly, I don't know about you, man. But what would you call this? Grooming. Spawn camping.
I don't think. Yeah. Okay. So I actually have like replied to this tweet saying, I mean, you don't think that the state is going to put indoctrination into their youth indoctrination camps? Like, what? Like, why wouldn't they do that? Like, why wouldn't they put propaganda in their youth propaganda camps? Right. So obviously, whether the youth propaganda is this or this, that's what you're going to have. Right. I mean, it just makes sense. Like, if you want the youth to think a certain way, you put it in the schools.
Part of me wonders, and I hope it wasn't true, that the paint job for that, which was like yellow on top, blue on bottom, was not similar to many mistakes that I've seen before, where they're trying to like stand with Ukraine and then get the flag upside down. I really hope it wasn't that. It is just like this school like paint like palette, because that would have been really bad. I remember seeing like
Yo, Karen, God, dude. All right, yeah, he is. He looks like a pug. That was an ad hominem. But anyway, yeah, the state. No, I said that right now.
Who's Joshua? Is that the tweet person?
Yeah. Like, I thought you were saying who said that. That was my comment. But anyway, no, he's the guy. He's part of the CLC, like Classical Liberal Caucus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think his stuff's worse than Casey. So let's see what Garen says. Yeah, the state's propaganda has slowly been ramping up the social climate toward this kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Let's see. ESG is the antithesis of economics. Well, yeah, I mean, like it's economic planning. And obviously we're going to get a little more into that, but like that's sort of the whole point of it, to actually manufacture what things are supposed to be rather than letting the market do so.
Yeah, I'd say specifically it's a Hegelian synthesis of economics. And I've been looking into it. I've been watching my James Lindsay. I've been watching my New Discourses, I'd say is a great source for that. But it's an economic, like a Hegelian synthesis where the whole idea of it is the dialectic, which is taking a thing and the antithesis of that thing, taking thesis, taking the antithesis, and then from that gaining a higher perspective, and that is your synthesis. And that is the dialectical progression. So you have general picture view. You have what the classical Marxists call radlibs, what we call like the woke crowd. And then you have the woke crowd who call the classical Marxists rightists, conservatives, anything like that. The new progression, woke Marxism, is a dialectical progression or Hegelian synthesis of Marxism, where you have Marx's class analysis of working class versus the capitalist class, and you apply that across the intersection of every identity. So for every identity, there's a major group and then a marginalized group. The major group oppresses the marginalized group, sometimes by virtue of just being the major group, sometimes through other means. But for every single aspect, every single thing, if you look up blank is racist, you'll find a result each time. And this is the what's called like a critical critique, I think. But it's like you have the classical sort of, I'm just leading nowhere. God, I still need to I need to up more.
Well, anyway, we'll get back into that a little bit, but yeah, as Jason said before, the politicians in the state is trying to distract everyone with the culture war while stripping everyone's rights away. Yeah, and I mean, I think an important point of this is like, despite us sort of getting into sort of these cultural issues, because I mean they exist, a lot of it is about telling you how the state manufactures it, what the state's involvement is. And then also, I mean, like, trying to get it more so away from just like, oh, it's just these leftists that came out of nowhere and brought this like cultural revolution in that did all this. I mean, like, I think there's you can go deeper into it, and it's not just that. Like, obviously, if you're just at that level, you're kind of just distracted by it. You're not going to get anywhere with it. You're going to try and say, oh, well, here's the exact policy layout that we need to fix this, and here's exactly here's what the X politician could be doing about this. Like, who am I going to vote for to try and get rid of this? I mean, if you look at who the main problem is, the state, then you'll stop looking toward politicians. You'll stop looking toward the Republican Democrat Party and saying or even Libertarian, and saying oh, this is my solution right here. No, it's we just need to talk about exactly what the problem specifically is. And let's see. So I was talking about the military, woke military, I guess. DeSantis was talking about that. We talked about that in the last episode, and we even talk about like that as a cultural issue, like how DeSantis was basically saying, oh, I'm going to come in and make the military less woke. And that's, if you break that down, and I'll just say it again here. I mean, like, it's more so him, like, he's like, oh, it's politicized now. He's more so trying to come in and be that person, if he is the president and this is the policy that the state chooses, that is going to like de-wokeify everything and sort of make it more palatable to be a part of the military again, right? Because like the state's numbers have been declining as far as recruitment when it comes to the military, when it comes to emergency services. And even Vivek Ramaswamy, who I talked about in the other episode, he was saying that he wants civic duty voting to be a thing. He wants I mean, like, this is what he's telling you, like, oh, I would do this. But like basically like saying like you need to be part of these emergency services or take a test in order to vote before you're 25, I think it was. I mean, so like it's all a ploy basically to get more people involved in this thing. And I mean, yeah, for a while the military was acting woke for whatever reason, like whatever reason that was supposed to be for. I mean, but now that is Pride Month. Guess what? And I mean, like, I don't even see this as a cultural war win when I say this, but the Navy has actually, like, they had a Pride something on their like profile pictures and in their Instagram and Twitter accounts, and they actually removed that. Like, it was some like few hours or a day in or something to like Pride Month. Like, they removed that. And so like when you see something like that, DeSantis isn't in, Joe Biden's still in. What does that say more about like hold up, let's put this up. Sounds more like another hawk needing to rebuild ranks for large scale war. Yes. But yeah, no, but my point is right here is that like DeSantis isn't even in, Biden's still in. But why do you see the Navy removing the Pride logo so like early on into Pride Month, right? That can't just be like, oh, well, we reverse course because, we felt like it now that like, I mean, it could have to do with societal backlash. It could have to do with like, their recruitment numbers. And maybe it's like, they thought maybe like there's a way that this could be more efficient to do this. But now that, the societal perception of it's so bad, like, it has to be removed because, it's not working. And so the state is looking at this and saying like, okay, well, obviously the recruitment tactics need to change if more people are going to be enlisting. So obviously that's why you're seeing before there's even a Republican president in, the agenda's already getting put in. It's already, it's independent of the candidate that's in office. It's already being put in. But yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much it for that. Unless you had anything that you wanted to comment on that. And then we're going to move on to the next topic.
Nothing too much. Yeah. It's just like DeSantis gonna be the savior from the woke. I think that's what he's like mostly focusing his campaign on at this point. That's somewhat what he's known for. I think I remember seeing like a change in position when it comes to the Don't Say Gay bill, that it is more close to how the liberals prescribed it, but I didn't look too closely into that.
What do you mean by that?
I remember just casually watching some two guys, PSA Sitch and Adam something. They are not libertarians. They're pretty,
something. I hate that Adam something.
You hate Adam something?
Yeah, I hate that Adam something, man.
Oh wait, no, not Adam something.
Oh, okay, it's not him.
No, Adam something's the leftist. Right?
Oh, he's such bad faith. He's such bad faith when it comes to what libertarians believe. You're probably talking about some other guy.
No, but PSA Sitch and Adam. Adam was one person who was making like a bunch of like Jordan Peterson like clips videos.
Okay.
And, like he was really popular. No, Adam something somewhat completely different.
Okay.
But
anyway, what was the point with that?
They were talking about how they're no longer defending the parental rights and education bill because of a policy change from DeSantis to make it more so about preventing the showing of, I think it was like the Buzz Lightyear movie in school. So they don't like that because that is just showing a gay character. But I don't know. It's still like showing gay characters to kids sort of thing.
Okay.
And that's just like...
I don't know too much about that. But you know what? Speaking of gay movies, well, this one's actually not gay. It's actually quite the opposite. What is a Woman? We're going to talk about that today, talking about its release on Twitter for free, because apparently there were some issues with Twitter and breaking of a partnership, because after the DailyWire had submitted it, the Twitter got back to them, some person from there, and said, well, actually, there was 2 instances of misgendering throughout the film. So now we're going to have to demote it in the algorithm. And basically we're not going to work with you anymore. But I was going to save this till the end of my spiel, but actually this was something that was kind of reversed course, not like the partnership itself, which I'll get back to as well, but the actual demoting and all that. Elon Musk apparently had criticized the handling of the transgender content. So the Twitter head of safety Twitter head for trust and safety resigned afterward. But I actually want to get a bit into this. So the whole point with that, yes, somebody had resigned over this and Elon Musk had criticized the handling of it, though I don't know that they're partnered still. So I think they still just released it for free, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, it kind of just, Twitter kind of got not necessarily what what this one person wanted or what Elon wanted, but sort of what it would have been best for it as an organization, saying basically we're not going to just outright, accept this and bring it in and promote it and all that right off the bat. Obviously that can't happen because that would be bad for Twitter. Right. But independent of that, I was sort of going to say that like Twitter as a company, if you look at it, like, yeah, Elon did come in, but I mean, do you think the only reason that it got sold to him was that, he just won this case against them or something? I mean, like, obviously the shareholders gave up because it was sort of like, well, they actually wanted it sold, I believe. And then like the execs kind of gave up and actually got these huge paychecks afterward. Right. So Elon Musk comes in saying like, I want free speech. Like I want to do this huge, wave of giving people their speech back. And yeah, some people were like brought back. There were some people that weren't, I mean, specifically Alex Jones, but that Elon said that was like a personal vendetta. But Elon's job in general now, even despite saying like he wants to unban some people, it is more so just to like save the business. He's made that clear. He wants to run Twitter so that it stays alive. Obviously, I mean, he owns it. He paid like 44 billion, right? But like, advertisers. Speaking of him having to appease to those. Also not so much of a problem now because he has the subscription service, right? I mean, like that's something that Twitter has. So like, therefore it's kind of like, you don't have to, bend the knee as much to their whims, but nevertheless, like I keep looking at it and sort of, it's not very like completely consistent with his whole like, amnesty. Right. So I kind of wonder why, but I look into it and, obviously the news, even the like news agencies are all like, oh, well, it's obviously a corporation that's looking for its bottom line. But if you look into it more than that, I mean, I think like it's obviously going to have to do with what Twitter is viewing as obviously efficient for itself. Let's see. So yeah, supposing that any censorship does take place, whether of this in the future or not, it's because it does impact Twitter as an organization. So it's sort of like, I don't think that Elon is coming in necessarily like on his own and just saying like, this is how we're going to run it. Like we're going to do it this way or that way. I think it's more so like, it's calculated within the agency to view it as like, what is going to hurt Twitter, what is going to help Twitter as far as keeping it alive. And so Elon may have like these views that, yeah, free speech should be allowed and all that, but it's not 100% reflected on Twitter. And I think the percentage that is more so just because Twitter was suffering before that. And this has actually brought it kind of back. Let's see what Garen said right here. I think it's important to point out that the chains of propaganda can be reinforced without any kind of direct marching orders from the state, such as friends, family, churches, teachers, etc. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's true. And obviously like kids go through a lot of socialization in school and obviously there's the whole like woke church thing. So, I mean, you get the right people to say these things, you influence the right people through the right media and it's going to happen. So, but Ashton, I mean, I don't know. Did you have any like comment on what I was talking about with Twitter?
Yeah. In response to like Garen's comment, I remember seeing an idea where say what it takes to be a journalist, it's mostly filled with midwits. And to stand out as a midwit, you have to be the most woke. You have to be the most creative in how you express how something is in violation of some norm, or you have to express in just like the most complicated terminology your ideas. If you think your audience is a simpleton, express it in the most simple terms, defining the most simple language. When it comes to this like early censorship of the DailyWire's What is a Woman, I'm pretty sure the people who intervened to like cancel its showing got fired. I think they stuck their necks out just for that one moment, and it kind of backfired on them. Streisand effect plus some other issues that worked against them means that it's now has like hundreds of millions of views or something like that, something insane. But when it comes to Elon having, is he going to act like principled or not? We already know that he's kind of not acting principally when he has that personal vendetta, like you said, against Alex Jones. There's probably like some other stuff that he would be against, but I'd say better than what he had before. He might be playing 4D chess with that new, I think it was the new CEO is like a World Economic Forum like graduate.
I mean, there you go. That's one thing. Like, look who he puts in power. I mean, like, why would he do that? And obviously,
that might be to appeal to the advertisers.
And also, Elon is not like, some independent, like radical, like, this dark horse guy, right? Like he is in favor of the FBI, right? Like he has said before, like or what was it when the Trump thing happened or something like that? He was talking about, oh, the FBI, why aren't they releasing these documents? Something along those lines. But I know for a fact what he said on Twitter was, regardless, like I'm still pro FBI. right? He's still like, obviously, if he asks about, these world organization leaders and all that, he tries to ask for transparency within these agencies, but then he'll hire the World Economic Forum lady, right? Then he'll do all these actions that aren't necessarily in line with what he's saying he believes, because I don't think it's 100% like, the moves that Twitter's taking aren't based on Elon's ideology.
It's just me.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, exactly. A good example is that a journalist doesn't have to have a direct script from the state. A lot of the propaganda they produce is simply a product of state education. Yes, friends, family, etc. Yeah. I mean, even Garen was talking about, like, as a journalism student, what he was being taught, and sort of like, how, reinforced the
major.
I don't know if he was a journalism major, but he said student, like back in the day. I don't know. Let's see. He takes the subsidy. Now he does pay them back, but still. Do you know what that's in reference to?
I don't necessarily know. Is there like the state paying him in some certain way?
Clarify that, Zach. I don't know. But wait, was there something earlier that Garen said? Maybe, I don't know. But Garen, I think, was saying this as like in one of my earlier episodes. Oh, Elon. But like, what about Elon? He takes the subsidy. Now he does pay back, but still.
I mean, like, he didn't have,
like,
all the
I mean,
money himself.
if we're talking about, like the government, right? Like the funding, right? You're talking about like for his agencies and all that, like his corporations, like he does pay them back. Okay. But I mean, like, are you talking specifically for one? I mean, I know the point is, like, yes, he's taking government grants. Let's see. Garen says, I was the editor of our school newspaper in high school, and I definitely was propagandized for a while. There we go. See, that's what I'm talking about. So like, he talked about, like, this whole, like, oh yeah, Trump's just this meanie that's like anti-democracy or whatever, that, like, I don't know, something about like that, or I don't know. Based on what I was taught to internalize concepts. Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, when it comes to Elon and like the new CEO, who's this like WEF person, to tie it back into Pride Month, it depends on who's holding the whip and leash. Is it going to be Elon holding the whip and leash? Is he going to be the Dom, or is like the new CEO going to be Doming him, stepping on his balls and shit? Because I think that's what most people are thinking to happen the second one. But
okay, so let me actually go back into this for a second, and then we're gonna actually, let me see what's next on this. Yeah, okay, we're gonna go into something corporations wise as far as Pride Month. Elon specifically, like, if we're just using him as an example, like, right, like, as we know, like, basically these corporate people, like these entities and these CEOs and all that, aren't like more powerful than the state, unless you disagree with this, and then we can get into that. But like, Elon's not more powerful than the state. He's not more powerful than all these power structures in place. Like, and I don't think you think that, but there are like plenty of these like leftist people that are like, oh, they control the government. Like, no, they don't. They don't control the government. But basically, like, if this guy's beholden to all these power structures that the state has set up, specifically the state itself, but then also like corporations, because like the state's giving them grants, the corporations are built up by the state and propped up by them. Like like society is organized by the state. Obviously, like, some guy in that level of power is not just going to be like an independent actor that can do whatever he wants. He is beholden to so many things, just as a politician is, I believe. Like, I don't think it's too far off from that. Like, as far as like what a politician has to do to be in that office, I think in the same way, like, obviously, like, Elon, to be where he is now, he has to be compliant in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to support, like, of the FBI, for example. Maybe at some point he'll say like, oh, I don't support the FBI because the state wants to dismantle the FBI, because you even see Trump talking about like dismantling the deep state. So maybe Elon's going to start saying that as the agenda as well. But like that's just my point there with that. I wanted to get into more corporation talk. TikTok censorship, I guess specifically we're going to start with TikTok. I mean, I don't know what's going on with that Congress bill. I looked up the news. There really wasn't any articles posted on it recently. But I actually just wanted to kind of mention that, like, TikTok has censored plenty of my short form videos, including the trans Chuchi, like 2 instances of videos showing that I got censored on that. And the Back from the Bender trailer had the trans Chuchi thing in it. So I think that's why it was censored. But, TikTok has been known for this. Like, it's not like this is anything crazy. I did publish my last clip about who controls the state, and that one was fine and it did all right. But like, it's obviously we're not going to be able to post anything from this, right? Like, I'm going to say, well, we didn't even drop any F slurs. I only did that last episode. Come on. I don't even know what's gotten into these people's heads. Like, they're crazy these days. I mean, it's woke mob.
I saw Truth Social. I don't know if it was a truth or an edit of like Trump saying the that.
Yeah, well, that was an edit. Trump didn't say that, but let's see. Hold up. Let's see what Zach says. Do you think the 14th Amendment has permitted the expansion of the Hamiltonian mercantilist state? Let's see.
14th Amendment specifically.
Yeah.
I think just
was that the no, I'm trying to think of what that was.
I know about the 19th Amendment.
No, because oh wait, well, I mean, obviously, citizenship, right? I mean, like I don't, that had to pop in my head after a second. I don't know why it took me so long, but like in school we were taught like the 13th, 14th, 15th was free citizens vote. I think about how much state propaganda is in that one claim, but like, yeah, basically like emancipation was 13th, and then 14th was like everybody is given citizenship, like you know, not everybody, but like every like person, you know, supposedly deserving of U.S. citizenship is, and then 15th is voting. Let's see. So the 14th Amendment, Reconstruction Amendments. I'm just going to read it off. Like,
I'd say just the Constitution as a document has done more to, in its replacement with the Articles of Confederation, has done more to expand the Hamiltonian mercantilist state.
I'll read us some state propaganda real quick. Section 1, citizenship and civil rights. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. What a lie. Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Yeah, so let's see. The idea, hold up, let me see. What is Garen saying over here? The idea of amendments permitting the expansion of the state implies that the government is beholden to pieces of paper. Also true, because, I mean, let's see what Zach said right before that, actually. There are a number of Supreme Court cases that have embroidered corporate personhood. Okay, I see what you're saying. But yeah, like it's not really like, you know, the passing of legislation that does this. The state has the ability to do that. The legislation itself is like the precedent that they can use to say, look where we wrote it, right? Like when they're justifying it to you. But like they can regardless do what they want. Like, you know, it can kill you.
Yeah,
if it really wants to.
Beliefs of legitimacy though are what the state lives on.
True.
The adherence to the Constitution is just provides it so much legitimacy in the minds of normal people that it is a very risky play to abridge that. It is a very risky play to do something very clearly unconstitutional unless your local constituency is all for that, in cases of like California, New York, New Jersey, etc. But specifically with the corporate personhood thing, I think usually that comes down to individuals who are the heads of corporations acting in their own, like, sort of they maintain their own individual rights even when they like use their corporation to act. The idea that a corporation itself is like an individual or a person or anything like that is fucking stupid, but it's like a corporation shouldn't be censored, and it maintains rights to freedom of speech and whatnot, to like publish a movie on Hillary or a movie on Jeffrey Epstein and Hillary or anything else like that.
Epstein. Okay, so
who's that?
Yeah, well, you know, I've never heard of the guy myself, honestly, you know, but like if I had heard of him, I would just think that he's not the type of guy to do anything to himself. That's like, you know,
do you smell
any sort of self-deletion or anything. I don't know that guy, but you know, we're going to talk about now with further just talking about corporations, Target and Budlight. You know, obviously these have just been huge things in the news, as far as like, you know, Dylan Mulvaney partnering with Bud Light, and then like that can like blowing this whole thing up, and Kid Rock doing the video where he's shooting the Bud Light, and you know, like I'm pretty sure people know what it is at this point. Come on, like you know what it is. Target, they had like the tuck friendly swimwear or whatever it was, and there was even stuff in the kids section for that. Come on, wait, you're telling me the corporations are not interested in pushing any sort of agenda, and definitely not interested in doing anything that would be in any sort of way harmful to minors? What, you're telling me that when they have like tuck friendly stuff in the kids section or near it? Like, come on, man. But yeah, so like what has continued this push to go woke? You know, even Elon criticized it, and so like, you know, there we get it tied back into him. But like we're going to talk about like what sort of like, you know, the executives are saying, right? So like apparently a former Anheuser-Busch executive went on to Fox News to claim that corporations were beholden to BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, and they're told to implement ESG values because of that. We're getting to the ESG guys, but I mean, I think that's true. Obviously, they are kind of told to, they're pressured, but they're told to do these things, and it's sort of let's see. Bud Light is cheap beer for teenagers to learn how to drink before they discover better alcohol. Yeah, good take. I mean, but
it's a piss beer.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, we could probably buy some pre-gay Bud Light, right? And drink a pack for the show. But
what's the difference between straight piss and gay piss, though? Come on.
Budweiser and Bud Light,
It's all the same thing. It's like a giant vat of piss that they're just
well, you said it's all piss, so I don't understand. Straight piss is Budweiser, Bud Light is the gay piss. And
the gay piss is owned by the straight piss.
It actually has the clot shot formula in it, certified. So I mean, yeah, they are supposed to follow this ESG, because obviously the people that are handling their money, these entities, I should say, they're handling their money. That's what they're supposed to do. That's their role. It's and you could follow this all back. This is as a string, honestly. You look at all these people within the organization, then you look at the organization itself as a whole, what it needs to survive. Then you look at what it's beholden to, what power structures. And then you when you're doing this, you're seeing employees, then you're seeing a corporation, then you're seeing a mega corporation. Basically it's not as if these things just form out of without the state, by themselves or anything. And so that's why you follow it back to the obviously the state, that contains all these things within it as well. So it's all going back to it. So when that happens, how do you expect it to sort of be oh, this agenda is just coming naturally out of some people that are rogue agents, or maybe they're just activists within these organizations? No, they're the ones that are told by public schools that you should believe this in the first place, to be the activist, to push that, right? They're the ones that are being taught to be journalists that are going to say her testicles, right? They're the ones that are saying this stuff, right? So it doesn't make sense when you have this sort of thing that that they're just not gonna that they're just coming out of nowhere. They're just reading some book that they found, and now that they're coming to a news organization or a corporation and changing everything all of a sudden, not even being the CEO, or even somebody within the board, or somebody that has more leverage to be able to do something. You're telling me this is the case? It's crazy. And even then, Disney, you remember they had the whole not so gay agenda or whatever, right? And I remember I was talking on Justice. If he's, I don't think he's in here. He probably doesn't want to see us gay bashing or whatever he calls us doing right now. But he was, telling me so what? So what? Whatever. Why does it matter that that there's a not so secret gay agenda? Why does it matter? You? Yeah. Why? How does it affect you specifically? And I dare you to come in here, man. I dare you to come in these comments and tell me about it. Honestly, I'm going to bully you for it, but you're in the server, but honestly, I need some sort of confrontation on this. It's good for reviews, but I just need to know exactly how this is the case, right? There's so much going into it that it's not just some sort of independent thing happening. It's planned. It's all planned. I don't know how much more I can explain it there, but if we're going to ESGs, and honestly, I want to give you a chance to say something on this before I go into that. But I was just going to say the next thing, even ESGs themselves are tied to the United Nations.
Yes. When you're doing all this charting of what leads to what, don't break out the cork board. No, we don't need it. We don't need any more talk of us being crazy. We already get that enough as it is. We have our mental diagnoses. We got our pill bottles, everything like that.
But we're going to be seen as crazy because they're told to see this is crazy specifically. And I know that sounds crazy as well. But look, think about it. Think about who's controlling society and telling you to look at this as crazy because they want to keep their control over society. It's true. It's true.
We live in a society.
We live in a society. In a planned
government.
Society.
That's the most obvious.
We live in a planned society. Okay, go on.
But I do want to define wokeness for the going on the discussion.
Bro, my social critics.
That's not very bad. That's not that bad.
Have you seen this real quick? Have you seen the stuff in China where they have people's faces in the public transit, on the buses and in the screens on the buses where they show their faces and their credit score and they say you got to bully these people if you want to up your credit score?
Oh fuck.
It's crazy.
I haven't seen that. Are you sure that's not a Jordan
I don't know.
Peterson,
No, it's not the cock melting factory. It's not the cock melting factory. This is real. I've seen it, but keep going.
Oh God, I saw like an AI art edit of that where it's like a movie poster of Jordan Peterson running, and it's just like to save all the Chinese men.
Because
but
of the
despite-
evils of socialism, they had to use one cock milker for two guys.
Oh God, you just reminded me of so many jokes. But wokeness is an aggressive push for diversity, equity, and inclusion, usually based on the belief that the outcomes which lack these things are indicative of discrimination and/or unfair social treatment. That last part there, the usually based on part, is the equity fallacy. That having outcomes that do not have perfectly or like not perfectly equal outcomes mean that there's discrimination there. Now, these people would posit that this is not a fallacy. In fact, that this is like real truth. But it's just hard to argue with someone who sees life in society so differently, because so much. Specifically, what I want to get back to is like that one critical critique thing, which is an idea that through critique of this current system and not providing a positive vision, like a positive affirmation of a future system, you will have the creation of a new idea. That through the tearing down of the current society, there will necessarily be something that is not this current society, and that is good, because you have identified something bad within it. When this new society, the moment it exists, there will be something bad about it. So then you must tear it down again and again and continue this process of critical critique, tearing down what is then created for the rest of time until you reach the end of history, which in that moment you will have true communism, everything like that. It all leads to, all these roads lead to the same place, because critical critique comes right out of God, I forget his name. He's got a really popular book. It's like influenced all of scholarly teaching and everything like that in our modern public school system. But it's like Ferrari or something like that. Not Ferrari. I definitely know that for sure.
Bugatti.
I got my Bugatti and Ferrari.
Okay, so but ESG, right? Like look at how this originated, right? You know, like you have I looked this up. It's the first group to coin the phrase ESG was the United Nations Environment Program Initiative in the Fresh Fields Report in October 2005. And according to Paul Clemens Hunt, who was leading this work at the time, the initial view was that it should be called GES, since they believed governance was the most important area, followed by environmental and social. And I wonder why they thought government was the most important part of it. You know, if you're looking to control a society, I wonder what the most powerful tool at your hands is. I mean, or what the entity that, you know, is doing it is, right? Like if you're looking to it, but like it, when you know,
butt in here real quick,
okay,
because I think usually what they mean by government is the organizational structure of the corporation or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like how many people on your board are black, gay, midgets. Don't have enough of those, bad government score or bad.
But think of like when you think about government, like think about like how you're running your organization, right? Like if you're looking to, you know, model it after something, what does it make sense to model it after? What sort of like efficiency structure are you looking for here? I mean, you're looking to that. Yeah. I mean, like if democracy is the system that you want to psyop people with, you're obviously looking to that to structure your organization as like, oh, we're such a democratic organization. Look at us, you know? So like, obviously there's so much more influence coming in from the state because of that specific thing. It's not like, oh, how do we look to, I mean, even looking to being like compliant with legislation or advocating for legislation, like it goes deeper than just saying like, oh, here's how we're promoting the literal, like, government that people are seeing and voting and all that. I mean, even then they promote voting. So I don't know, like I keep trying to like come up with something like, what are they not promoting? Right. But like they're promoting voting. They're promoting democracy. They're promoting, we need more BLM drones. All of that, right? Especially if you're Raytheon, right? Like, we need more BLM and trans drones. We need to, give them that missile, that big meat missile, right? In Saudi Arabia or whatever, Yemen, we need to give it to Saudi Arabia so they can bomb Yemen with those meat missiles. But look, I mean, like then you have the Corporate Equality Index, right? This is another one of it. It's called CEI, Corporate Equality Index. Report published by the Human Rights Campaign, that's what it is, Foundation, as a tool to rate American businesses on their treatment of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender employees, consumers, and investors. And they have corporate sponsors. It's not just like this is some organization that just does this. And even if that were the case, this is what it gets propped up by. Like, I want to show you this right now, because this is the corporate partners for this organization that I'm telling you about right now. This is like CEI rating that they're giving out to corporations, and then the corporations are literally funding it so they can get a good CEI score. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, right here. Right? Look at this. No one can take away our pride. Corporate partners. Look, like this is the Human Rights Campaign. Obviously they name it that because it's a psyop. Thank you to our national corporate partners for their generous support of the work of the Human Rights Campaign. All companies have demonstrated a high level of commitment to equality. Look at that. Amazon's like almost number one. American Airlines, Accenture, DA, whatever the hell that is. Smirnoff. Smirnoff? Like you're talking the vodka? I can't drink vodka.
There are a couple like different
Google, JP Morgan Chase.
There are a couple different
Microsoft
booze brands that have gone pretty woke and shit.
Pfizer. They are giving you a gay gene inside of you with this vaccine. The Walt Disney.
They're not giving you gay gene. They're giving you some gay genes when you get the vaccine.
It's the gay scene.
They're giving you like the plastic, the polyester genes, which plant estrogen into your balls and turn off your testosterone production.
It takes a scan of your balls actually to do that. But like the Walt Disney Company is their platinum is one of their platinum sponsors. Target, right? Look at that. Where's Anheuser-Busch, right? Look at this. UPS. I don't know why UPS is there, but think about it. Walt Disney, not so secret gay agenda. Walt Disney, Target, Tuck, swimsuits that you can put your penis in to pretend like you have a vagina instead. Like look at that. And Pfizer, the gene, well, I don't want to say this on stream. I should probably stay away from that, right?
Anyway,
their product, right? It goes in you.
Fantastic product.
And right, but think about another product now. Think about a different one. It gives you AIDS. Product. This other product gives you AIDS, autoimmune deficiency. It's giving you a problem with your efficiency in your body. Heroin? Okay. Yeah. Anyway, let's see. I should probably keep up with chat. I'm over here goofing around on this. Let's see. Legacy Zach sounds like another scheme to increase the unemployment line so that the state knows where you are at one location before the Raytheon drone strike hits your condo. Garen, we need more trans children working for the CIA. True.
I need to provide their insight.
Sounds like Sheath Underwear. Thank you for the plug. I don't have a sponsor with Sheath Underwear, but
I hope it's not full of like.
I don't even really wear underwear like that. I'll be real. But
Commando?
Yeah, all the time. You saw that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer does that? I don't think you watched Seinfeld, but there's an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer, he's having these problems. I think it was like with boxers. They're like, oh man, you got to wear these like he was wearing boxer briefs. They were too tight. And they're like, Kramer, you got to wear like boxers. Like, you can't have that like tight stuff down there. It's going to mess up your sperm. So he goes to the doctor, sperm count's low. And he's like, what am I going to do now? So like, he's like, well, these boxers are just bunching up in my jeans or like whatever, not jeans. He doesn't wear jeans, slacks or whatever, And so then his solution to it is to wear nothing under there, right? And think about that. That's actually the most free range thing. It's pasture raised almost. But anyway,
just go all out there. Wear a kilt. Only wear a kilt. Maybe nothing.
That would actually be pretty based if we started doing that. Let's see. I prefer Duluth Buck. Who's Duluth? Is this a joke? Am I gonna get like deezed or something like that? Is this like
I have no clue.
Duluth buck naked feels like him in. Okay, anyway, Zach, I'm sorry I didn't get that. But let's see, SDGs, right? Forgot about that. Well, not really, but like I went on such a big rant that like I kind of chilled out before I started talking about the SDGs, which are also part of the United Nations, right? We're looking at United Nations over here, what they're sponsoring. SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, 30 goals that they want by 2030, I believe it is. Isn't that it? I think, or is it 17 by 2030? It's something like that, some number, right? It UN SDGs. But like it might be 17. I might be wrong on that. Let's see. Why is UN SDG 11 so important? Sustainable Development Goals, whatever the hell the number is, look it up, right? I don't care. 2030, right, is the time they want this done by. And what else wants to be done by 2030? You will own nothing and you will be happy 2030, right? Like, what's with this? It seems like all of them kind of want to get you to this better climate in 2030. I don't know what's with that, like specifically, but that number, they have it as like a sort of like, we need to be like sucking out carbon, like out of the atmosphere. We need to have it in us instead. But with our like vegan burgers,
carbon out of something and then put it into yourself. Like sounds kind of gay to me there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, they want you to suck that atmosphere dry. Let's see. So, but it's a set of United Nations defined global development goals and climate change. Like honestly, what does that sound like? Another psyop, right? Do we even need to go into that? What do you think?
But what I do want to focus on, like, there's these like goals that they're setting out, but what's making these like corporations follow them? What's making everything like that? Most of these heads of Blackrock, Vanguard, and there's like one other major one, are like World Economic Forum like graduates and everything like that. They had whatever program. They're like young global leaders or anything like that, which I'm pretty sure Trudeau is like a graduate of, for example.
Jordan Peterson helped author the UN Sustainable Development Program.
I think I remember that. But like I don't blame him too much for it. It's just like
I do. But anyway, keep going.
He got involved with sign up. Think about how the state provides just straight up state pensions, and the state invests in stuff itself, and the state incentivizes investments of normal people into these gigantic corporations, in gigantic banking firms through tax incentives, where capital gains on a certain amount of money is half as much as income tax on that amount of money. Just given like I think like $400,000, it's just half as much, and it caps out at like say 20%, whereas income tax just keeps on going. And that is incentive one. It should be equalized to income tax, for instance, where income tax should be brought down to zero, ideally. But that incentive puts so much more money in these investment firms than otherwise would have been there, which gives them so much more power. These investment firms are in control of trillions of dollars, none of like very little of which is theirs, but very much of which are like people on state pensions, people with just like Dow Jones index or just like investment funds. So this exponential increase in power to these investment firms is directly a result of state intervention into the market.
Yeah, I mean, like it's crazy, man. Like this is just, you know, what do you think about society being planned to this extent? Like, how do you live with yourself at night?
I live with myself at night like decently, but man, I feel the call to just like live in a cabin in the woods away from the rest of society in a county that doesn't have building codes so fucking much. That's my plan.
Yeah.
I hope to like stay involved like in some extent, but it's just like not necessarily like black-pilled completely. I do think there's a chance we can win. I think that chance is slim.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, like, obviously, look what Zach said over here, right? Like, become your own bank to counter their agenda. And that's another part of it, right? Like, we've talked about counter economics on the show. We've talked about, like, you know, what can be done to counter the state, right? Like, you know, let's see, my boy Ignis spitting straight facts from Garen. There we go. You know, we got some libertarian unity right here. We need to get you on the show, Garen, once you're not on work or whatever. I mean, like, obviously tonight you're probably gonna be a little busy, but yeah, no, we need to do another live with him. That would be good. I got some other guests I plan on having soon, so that we might do that too. I don't know, but I wanted to get into the state, right? Like, you know, some more. We've already done that the whole show, but yeah. They're specifically the state, right? Not just like these arms of the state or like things that it's, you know, pushing into society indirectly or even directly, but without you knowing it's direct, right? What is directly happening under the state right now? And, you know,
before we go to that, I do want to mention congratulations to Rob for getting ceviche after tennis.
Okay. Anyway.
It's a joke you'll get later.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway. We're gonna
those who know.
We're gonna look at this man, right? Okay. We're gonna look at this man who was quoting a Bible verse and was arrested in Pennsylvania. I actually need you to pull that one up, but because my boy over here is hooked up with that Google Chrome. He's got the equipment. Let's see. So a man was quoting a Bible verse, and I mean it was before he could even finish it. Let's see, Garen, you're off in like an hour. I mean, I don't know how long we're gonna be on here. We're probably gonna be on here not too long. I gotta wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow or something, like earlier.
Imagine.
Yeah, bro. I'm gone. I'm out of here. But yeah, another time we'll do it. Let's see. Okay, so summary of this video, I guess.
Here we are in
we'll just watch
Reading.
it.
We got a bunch of
It's loud.
people coming from
There we
out
go.
of town to celebrate evil. It was a wonderful providence of God. I was driving with my family down the road and we passed this. Met some faithful brothers over here that are standing. I came out and got to preach for about 12 minutes before a cop got in my face, laid hands on me, and threatened to arrest me if I didn't stop. Of course, I don't have my GoPro camera with me because I wasn't coming out. Had no idea this was happening. I just happened to drive by it. But the gospel went out. They got drag queens. They got children here.
Yeah, they do have children.
Flag raising ceremony into Satan's cesspit.
Okay.
Our own mayor, Eddie Moran, is out here. And yeah,
Garen, we'll do it another time.
The type of insanity. Now, what's amazing about Reading is it is largely a Hispanic population. But I don't know how well you can see, there's not a lot of Hispanics out today. It's a bunch of white people. I'm sure they drove over from West Reading or from
white people,
because the Hispanic community largely would shun this. But yeah, that's what we got. This is what they're doing in Reading City. Tyrant cops threatening older men and myself.
Based? I mean, kind of based,
here.
But like, semi-based.
Some Christian anarchists.
Oh, just everything you
I
can
doubt
imagine.
He's one, but
So this is quite crazy.
He's anti-cop.
Wonderful providence of God.
He's
That
local
I, can walk
cop.
I mean, the
here.
question is, does he mean the cops are tyrants, or does he mean these cops are tyrants, right?
Laid hands on me, but by the grace of God, I could preach for about.
But it
10
could be
minutes
very
or so,
based.
like I said before he did that. So the gospel went out, the law went out, the gospel went out. God's going to do work with it. He's apparently a professing Christian too. That's the horrible thing about this. Looks like some more men just showed up to support us. This cop's going to give him a hard
Wait, hold on,
time.
pause. Because he's Christian, but it's not an ideological thing. It's the state's interests, right? Like, it's what is going to uphold the state. It's not about this guy being a Christian. It's not about this guy, like how he enforces the law having to do with his Christian faith. That has nothing to do with it.
Well, he has the greater value of statism.
Yeah, well,
like
I mean, that's what you have to submit to be in that position. You don't just get to put your values above that. You don't just get to say like, oh, I'm a good Christian and I would, I'm going to do like the correct thing and not arrest this guy who's just preaching something, like I'm going to do what's necessary for this institution.
How do you mean you have to?
What?
How do you mean you have to?
What do you mean you
have
okay,
to
so
put the status value before the Christian one?
Okay, so well, I mean, that's pretty simple. Like now, if that's how you're using your discretion and you're not doing necessarily what this, the people that are in power over you are looking for you to do, I mean, you're going to be fired or you're going to get penalized for that. You obviously have to submit to other people. It's not like you just get all this discretion yourself. Like even as cops, like we say like, oh, they have discretion, all that. I mean, like they still submit to somebody over them that is not interested in what they believe. They're interested in what is, again, beneficial to the organization of that mafia of but like it's not right. It's not about him being a cop, a Christian, and just being able to do something like that and getting away with it. And they're like, oh man, I feel for you. I understand you were just exercising what you believe is your faith. No, it's you didn't do the right thing for us. You're gone. That's what's going to happen.
I think to a great degree too, there are other incentives involved when it comes to a person higher up on the state trying to punish someone below. There is there's often a blow to legitimacy when that happens. When some there has to be a propaganda push to say this is legitimate what we're doing. This person's a bad person, so what we're doing is good. Everything like that. If propaganda weren't so important, the state wouldn't spend so much money on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have the media for that. The media runs cover all the time for whatever the state does that this. It's not necessarily that the state has to watch out to such an extent that they're going to give so many concessions. Yes, there might be something that they have to, absolutely, because there's no covering it up at all and there's no lying their way out of it. It's going to cause some sort of violent revolution at that point, and maybe it does. But what happens here is that they can run propaganda on as much as they want, literally hide certain facts from it, be deceptive so that people watching it are like, oh, well, that didn't happen. I don't believe that happened. You're just making stuff up when you say that. It happens all the time.
Yeah. But I would say it's not an ironclad rule that you have to put statism above whatever other belief when you get into these positions, so long as you play the game well enough to where the incentive structure is in your favor.
But the playing the game is serving the incentive structure.
I'd say it's the actions that you do while playing the game. Because 99% of actions are in favor of greater statism, you could say. Not necessarily the interests of the people above you. Because the interests of the people above you could be their own specific ideologies, interplaying with how
there are people above them
job,
dictating what they're supposed to do.
And to a degree, they're hands off.
What do you mean?
And to the extent to which they are hands off, to the extent which they give range of opinion between the person below, because stepping on them would be a blow to their legitimacy. There is a range of possible actions that they could take.
I don't disagree, but they're going to take the one that's most in favor of what, you know, this organization is asking of that person.
They're going to take the one that's most in favor of their own self-interest. These people are
well, okay, but if you think about it, like when there is the ability to crush a person that doesn't do that, or you can be fired for it, you're obviously going to serve the interests of that organization. Because like, think about it, like if I'm saying like I want to do this thing,
you see that in your self-interest.
But like if I'm saying like I view acting the courageous way as so much in my self-interest that I'm willing to lose my job over it, then I'll just lose my job. It's like, you know, maybe I cause some sort of trickle effect that has like one little instance of something happening. Like maybe this one guy doesn't get arrested at this moment, but in the long run, I'm going to be replaced. There's going to be somebody that's more willing to do it. I think it's just too ingrained for it to be any other way, that like, you know, oh, like there can just be everybody standing up and being courageous and suddenly everything's just going to change.
In certain circumstances. In other circumstances, in specific contexts, there are bucks of this general trend. Like this cop didn't have to arrest this guy. It was him and like one or two other people that made the decision, okay, we're going to arrest this guy. He could have used discretion not to. I imagine the mayor and the police chief has a policy where it's okay to do it. The union has a policy of we're going to protect you anyway.
Right.
Once this leads to a civil rights lawsuit and everything like that. And I think the courts are as such where once this gets through the process, this dude will probably get some sort of compensation. He may not go through that means. He may want to. He may get
it's possible that this guy gets something out of it, but like I don't necessarily know that that's as much of a loss as to just like let him go and keep doing that and disrupting this, you know, event that they want to be upholding. So like I mean, I don't necessarily think that like, you know, just because these guys were here exercising that like, oh, it's just what they wanted to do. Right. Like, I mean, again, like, yeah, they were probably given the ability to do so. They know they're going to have cover, and there's a reason that they're given the ability to do so in the first place, so that they will do things like this. It doesn't have to be like literally to every minute detail. It's like, you literally need to do this right now. You're being radioed in, like, oh, get this guy right now. Like, I mean, it just could be that you're given certain abilities to do things that will lead you more so to doing things like this.
I mean, to a great degree, it's we need to change the incentive structure involved. Like this cop, his information is publicly available somewhere. His face is definitely publicly available. That can be lined up.
I mean,
his life can be made a living hell. Yeah, his life can be made a living hell. If not,
I mean, that's great. I encourage that. Let's see. Let's read a little bit of the chat first, because I completely agree. If we're going to do anything about it, it should be that. Let's see. So the most dangerous of any religion is when that religion holds monopoly over all others. Statism is a religion and is using gay and trans rights movement as its cover. Yeah,
that's much more than that.
Yeah, right. It is no different from the hijacking of abolition movements in the 19th century. Oh, sure. Yeah. Or the labor revolts of the early 20th. Yeah, I agree. They're often politicized. You even see it today. We were talking about this in my server with Defund the Police, right? You have like them basically saying like, you know, people at first were saying, okay, we don't want the police to have this much funding. They're like, you know, all this equipment they have, this military gear, whatever. And then it became, oh, well, we need social workers. Well, we need to put it in these other areas for these impoverished communities to make sure that they're okay. Let's see. So Garen says, you might be ideologically skeptical of arresting people for drug laws, but as a cop, that's literally your job. What do you think about that?
To a great degree. So, and this is like something where the rare case where a cop not having body cameras may work out in someone's favor. If a cop doesn't have a body camera on and he sees someone smoking a blunt or doing a more serious drug, he does have the discretion, because no one else is watching, to let him off. Or like if he finds a kid drinking a beer, he doesn't have to ruin that kid's life. He can just have.
It's more rare. I mean, like the problem with that is, yes, that may happen. Like, but it's more rare. First of all, second of all, it's for sure. And so I don't necessarily think, even for the state viewing it, that the costs outweigh the benefits for that, because like the amount of times that they will be arresting these people that are on drugs, the amount of times that they're going to be punishing people that are breaking the fiat of the state is just so much more beneficial to it, that even if there's some sort of rogue actions here and there in a tiny amount, like, I mean, if you like, you know, if you add it up, it's so much more beneficial to the state.
Yeah, that's because the incentive structure is as such where local governments are, or local police officers are, or just police departments are incentivized to follow these state and federal laws. If the incentives say just for their personal lives were not as such to where they find that as a good idea, then
Let's bully them. Let's bully them.
Yeah.
Let's
We
see.
need to physically remove the police from communities.
I mean, based. Let's see. Serve the institution for that 20-year public pension.
Yeah, and that pension will go. That money is being held by Blackrock or Vanguard, and that money.
You just said black, and I was like, oh, whoa, where are we going?
It's going to blacks.com. It's going to blacks.com. They're going to employ your wife.
Well, I mean, if she's a cop's wife, maybe. I mean, she's getting blackandblue.com. Let's see. So Karen says, yeah, people act in their self-interest. And as praxeologues, we're not denying this. It's just that people becoming a government employee is a result of acting in their own self-interest. Yes. And I mean, like, if it's in your self-interest already to become a government employee, thinking like, oh, I'm going to get secure pay, I'm going to get all this and that, and these incentives and these, like, the thing with that is, I mean, and you kind of have to agree, like right now, like the way it is at least. And I don't think it's just like gonna change like that, but like the way it's organized on purpose, which I would argue, is because the state is trying to get people to think this way, trying to get people to join their ranks by, essentially thinking like, yes, it is beneficial for me to join. They have jobs that are more easily available to those that maybe don't have their start in their career. And so, I mean, obviously when you have that happening and you have the secure paycheck that you're given, you obviously don't want to give that up. You obviously don't want to give the benefits you're seeing from this, your pension, whatever, your health care, whatever you're being given. You do not want to see that taken away from you. And you don't want to get that, like you will sacrifice so much, or I guess like, when I say sacrifice, I don't mean from yourself. Well, maybe your morals, but sacrifice
like other people.
You sacrifice other people to the state, the God of the state, right? For your benefit, but it's such a corrupt benefit, not the state necessarily being corrupt itself. That's how it is. But like, I'm saying you yourself are corrupted because you allow yourself to do this. But let's see. Zach says, privatize it all. The great Walter Block would say.
As the great Walter Block would say.
Yeah, I don't know. I got a little bit of a moment, Right?
If the light touches it, privatize it. If the light doesn't touch it, privatize it.
So I mean, we talked about like the issue of private property here, but like I don't think how do you define that as like a sort of like, is there an entity defining unilaterally what property standards are?
What I would say is first, private property just means like individual ownership over property. There are legitimate property claims and there are illegitimate property claims. An illegitimate property claim could be, I took this money from this guy without his consent and it's mine now. And that wouldn't be a legitimate property claim. A legitimate property claim would be you were the first to acquire something from nature. First to use it as a means. That's what acquisition is. Or you voluntarily transacted for a piece of property from an owner of that property, a just owner of that property, one could say. And that is the natural law definition. Now, what that looks like in reality is a matter of the facts of reality. If it is a fact of reality that A initially possessed it and is the just owner of it, but B is claiming that he initially possessed it and is the just owner of it, then the facts of reality as such are B is lying, B is not the just owner. But it is not necessarily inherently true that we can determine that because we're not omniscient.
So yeah, so the point I'm getting into with it though, like, yes, I agree with everything you said after the words private property. So like the point of that being like, okay, so who's enforcing these standards is kind of the question with that. And like, if you're saying there is an organization that can come together and enforce this, then you're kind of like getting into, a state again. That's the problem with it. So like the private property itself, like isn't like, how would I define the state? I mean, I'm not necessarily good at saying like every component of it, but basically, I mean, it has like a geographical monopoly over the use of force that's backed up by its militia and bank. And
what I would say is a entity that is enforcing rights does not necessarily have a geographical monopoly, and it doesn't have a monopoly on the law itself. The law is natural. The law is but how does it determine that is the question. How does it determine that? How do you mean? Yeah.
Like, how would an agency of that, justifiably determine what this is to enforce it in the first place, if that's, what your claim is? But like, also like the question being like, how would a community regulate itself? And I'm not saying like, oh, how would anarchy work? I'm saying, like, how would it justifiably regulate itself without sort of establishing that monopoly? And then also the other question, which I was just asking, was sort of like, how is it determined that this enforcement of said, law is the natural law and is, therefore like, something that can be used as like revenue?
I would say the extent to which we know what natural law is the extent to which we can determine what is true. And that is not a perfect process. That is not a process that can be entrusted to one individual to determine what is true per se. But when it comes to enforcing rights, there's like the rights enforcement agencies. Security is best allocated as a market, as any other force, as is rights enforcement, rights protection. When it comes to what were some of your other parts of your question?
Yeah, so like basically if a community organizes to enforce this itself, like how is that deemed justifiable? Like at what point is it a monopoly or not? Like how do you avoid basically saying like, okay, well, essentially we have established a monopoly of what can, be used as rights enforcement?
Well, there's no entity that would specifically on the legal code, like what is enforced, there's no entity with that right to establish a legal code. Specifically, the legal code is established via natural law, via what is true as a consequence of the non-aggression principle, which is properly defined, and I'll define it here for those not in the know. Conflict is the initiation of the contradictory use of scarce resources as a means. So if I have a stick and you want the stick, and you try to take the stick from me, you're initiating conflict with me. I am the owner. Well, assume I am the owner of the stick. I am the just victor in that outcome. And you initiated this contradiction because you cannot use the stick at the same time I am using the stick. Say I'm using it to scratch my back and you want it to use it to get the toe cheese that you have building up.
Hey, yo.
It cannot be in two places at once as a matter of fact or reality. And then aggression is the initiation of conflict. Sorry. Okay. So you are.
Well, anyway, we'll get back. We'll get back into that maybe a little bit later. I do want to read chat and then get back to the video because we did stay off that for a while. I even forgot we were talking about that. But let's see. So most cops can act with impunity even with public backlash because the backlash they get are usually co-opted within a politically safe narrative like BLM.
I'd say, yeah, that's true, and it's important for us to try to not necessarily like reclaim the narrative because like a concept such as the narrative, like a singular narrative, is mostly pushed by like the corporate press or anything like that. Yeah. So it's just like we need to win the info war, one could say.
Okay. Yeah, but I do agree with Garen on that. And let's see, most laws and policies that might be more controversial, quote unquote, to the public usually have a lot of propaganda to back it. Yeah. I mean, also, like either way, the law gets passed. Like we've even had like, or not we've, but like, have you seen the study where it shows like basically even if a law has zero support or whatever, like it has the same chance of passing as if it has 100 or even like anything in between that?
It's also just like people are generally stupid. Like you can ask a person, do they want free healthcare, and they'll say yes. But when you get into like the details of the policy prescription, they say no.
But it has nothing to do with public opinion is the point. Like these laws passing or not. Like it'll pass. And usually these people are blaming it on the lobbyists and all that. They're saying, oh, the lobbyists are the ones doing it. No, I mean, like, yeah, like you've said, like, oh, we need to change the lobbying incentives. Like, I think even if you said like, oh, on the books, like lobbying can't be done, like there's still money involved. There's still people in doing certain things, like,
not
having
certain lobbying incentives. That's always going to be there. But like, we need to change the incentives that influence the state actors, as we need to add negative incentives to the things that we don't like.
I just don't think that'll, like, first of all, why would it be in their self-interest to do that to themselves? And then second of all, how would that be allowed to be the case?
We need to make it so that their lives are unlivable when they do the things that we don't like.
I mean, that's all just bullying online, which I agree with. But
not bullying off. Who says that?
Yeah, okay. I guess we're not talking about policy right now. We're just talking about bullying, which I'm fine with. Let's see, cyberbullying, and if these politicians get a little mad about it, I don't know what happened to your camera. Okay, so I'm just gonna. Okay. Anyway, I'm just going to come over here and most laws and hold on. No, we already read that. Can the state own property? No.
Group
Well, not
ownership claims to
justifiably.
property are false.
You said what?
Group ownership claims to property are false. To be an owner of property means that you are the just victor in a conflict. Conflict can be between individuals. So there can, as a matter of what is true in reality, a stick can only be in one place at one time, being used, not necessarily being used for one thing, but a stick can only be at one place at one time. As such, if we have a conflict over a stick and we're both supposedly owners of that stick, there can still only be one victor. There can either be one victor or no victor, in which case of no victor, you don't necessarily know who the owner is. But any sort of group claim to ownership of property is just as a matter of facts of reality false, because it cannot solve for conflict. There will necessarily be contradiction in that property norm, and it'll necessarily be false.
All right, so we're going to get back to this. We'll see if there are any comments on that, but let's actually watch the arrest itself to see what the cops are doing, right? Like, let's see.
Guys, this is public property with respect. Oh, I'm respecting it. That's you know who's cheering for us? The people that are in hell. So you do.
Look at the pride van, man.
This is public property.
What's that even saying?
This is public property, bro.
God is not.
You can't do anything about that. You have no control over it, man. I mean, like, look, clearly, like they enforce that they have control over it. Just telling them that, nah, you need more than that, bro.
And this dude's like a sergeant too. I think that's what that is, and I think I remember that from the case.
Cops aren't gonna listen to you by you telling them something like, oh, it's the law, or oh, it's, you know, like your duty is to us, or you work for us. I saw a lady get a ticket saying like, you work for us, as if like that's gonna convince anybody of anything. And like, you know, it's for a reason. That's why they all act the same. Like if they supposedly had like these morals to an extent where like it could somehow outweigh like what their jobs are there for, yeah, they would, you know, avoid giving you that ticket even after you tell them that, and even after you start like praying they won't arrest you. Can we actually go back on that? Because like, wait, was this the first guy that got arrested, or was this just another guy? Because no, this was the guy right? That got arrested. Yeah. I didn't. Okay, can we go back to hear the like the verse like as he was saying it?
He hardly got a word out.
No, because he did say it. I just didn't hear that because I was talking. But yeah, let's listen. This is the moment.
So you do you, and I'm gonna do me. This is public property. You. God is not.
He's about to say God is not the author of confusion, I'm pretty sure, but he only gets out God is not, and then
and then he gets arrested right away. I mean, yeah,
it's not even like leading into like a homophobic verse, and they're just like,
wait, hold on. Actually, I don't want to kill the video just yet because we need to see what happens after that.
Yeah. Here's my thing. They leave the backpack
on film.
They know he's not a threat because the general policy is you're supposed to cut that off so that they don't have access to it, but they don't let him take it off too. It just like hangs on his hands and his wrists for a while.
Yo, I'm gonna need you to go to 128. And they're clapping.
Look, they're clapping. That's the part. Yeah, they're celebrating his arrest.
I cannot believe I'm watching this.
Let's celebrate as the cops take you in, man. We, you know, ACAB, except for when they're doing this, right?
Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous.
Defund the police until now. And I'm not even saying that from a conservative perspective. That's like, oh, we need to fund the police. No, it's like ACAB was right. It's just you shouldn't be doing this.
Earlier.
All cops are bunnies.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything after this? I mean, they just take them away.
I don't think so.
Okay, so okay, yeah, I mean, like that, we pretty much covered it. Like they clap as that's happening. I mean, like they don't give a shit about this guy. Like they literally, I mean, like their whole movement is like, as long as we're backed up by some people that can protect us, like it's, you know, not even like in the sense of if somebody's attacking us, can we be protected from the meanies, from the people that are saying something bad about our movement, from the people that might be in any sort of way harmful to this movement? And literally like the state's like, well, agreed. You know, so I'm gonna flash up some of the chats. Let's see. We already talked about that. Let's see. So Garen said they can own property. To Zach, they can own property but not legitimately. Agreed.
A supposed property norm in which groups can own property is a false one.
Yeah. But how can one allocate property if no one necessarily owns it?
I think that was to you.
Okay. So okay, that's a good point. It's not about allocating property, because that's, I mean, in a sense you're talking about like planning society, right? Like you're still like saying like, you know, what are you squinting for? I mean, like if you're talking about allocation of property, like, I mean, I go with like, you know, the person that has acted upon a resource, like any sort of moral agent, and therefore they're like, you know, getting property out of that. But like otherwise it's, you know, yes, that is ownership, right? But like, I don't think it's about, you know, sending more cops after people in a private society to enforce that.
Do you have a mere possessor norm? Or it's like just the one that I'd imagine on it? Like the one who
not necessarily the one who has it, like if that's what you mean.
So
because it's not like,
because you just said like acquisition. Do you mean only first acquisition and then voluntary trade after, or do you mean anything else on top of it? Okay.
No, I mean, like that's how I'm saying how somebody owns it. But what I was saying was like creating private property standards, like as if you're like enforcing on top of that, you know, those things, and then taking somebody in like because they violated those, and not just merely like stopping the acting against somebody, you know, unjustly, like because they have that property. Like what I'm saying is like the whole like idea of law enforcement when it comes to enforcing, you know, like imprisonment and you know.
Imprisonment is like.
Right. Unjust. So what I'm saying is like all these things on top of you know, what property already is essentially just creating the idea of what the state already has is like what private property is.
I wouldn't say so, because specifically it would be like it's being aggressed upon does not only entitle you to stopping that aggression. If someone destroys your house and they're just like about to step on like the last plank of wood to break it or some shit like that, you don't have the right just to stop them from breaking that last plank of wood. You have the rights to seek remediation and retribution. Remediation would be the returning of the victim to a state prior to the aggression. So it would be paying for the reconstruction of the house, and then paying for like any sort of fees that were involved in tracking this person down and enacting justice upon them. Retribution.
But at the same time, like the person that is has done that, I mean, isn't it like their right to say, I don't want to agree to this arbiter, right? Like, I mean, you agree with that, right? Like that you have to find an arbiter that you mutually agree upon.
Well, getting aside from arbitration, because arbitration has to deal with the implementation of this without omniscience. But and then you are also entitled to retribution, the enactment of this same action upon the aggressor. And this has to do with them not being able to, in this case, non-aggressively argue against it. They're not able to argue against having the same action enacted upon them as a matter of consistency, non-contradiction. Same with remediation. But in the case of arbitration, it's mostly a matter of dealing with determining what is true. When it comes to dealing with someone who none of these rules are set up ahead of time, that's a bit more difficult. When it comes to someone with like these rules being set up ahead of time, like this person has an insurance policy out in case they cause damage to other things that would then go to the insurance provider and everything like that, and yada yada yada. Worst comes to worst, if the way that you know that you are most certainly not violating natural law is that they can be expelled from anyone's private property, and considering that all resources, all land would be either privately owned or unowned, then he would be expelled from that local society. Now, if you want to not necessarily take a more risky approach, then there is enactment of what's it called? The enactment of retribution, of just justice upon this person, and then you appeal to what is true. You could be wrong. You could be wrong about any claim, but if you appeal to what is true and it is true, then you are in the right. If you appeal to what is true and you are wrong, then you are in the wrong.
Okay, I guess sort of my question, I it was a bit of a lengthy answer, but I was like looking for a direct answer on, do you have the right to submit somebody to arbitration? Yes or no, unless they agree to that specific like arbiter.
You have a right to enact justice upon them. Given a certain set, I'd say just like the short answer was you'd have a right to enact judgment upon them without even the arbitrator.
Okay, that's fair.
In a sort of like a general sense of how do we like have evidentiary standards? Like, how do you know that this person was the one who did it? Are you sure it wasn't this person? Stuff like that.
Okay,
that's where the arbitrator
let's
would come
look at
involved.
some of the comments.
The incentive would be for the accuser, like the victim, to limit their liability and not try to just go after someone unless they really know for certain that it's them. Because if they are wrong and they enact justice upon a person who did not aggress upon them, then they are the aggressor.
Okay. So Garen says, yeah, collective ownership is impossible, and it's why I'm skeptical of the net taxpayers argument for immigration. So what's your response to that, actually? I'm interested to see that.
So does he mean like on net the like immigrants?
Like basically the reason that immigration enforcement to like, you know, somebody that's considers themselves hoppy and is often justifiable is used as like this sort of like look at the effect on the net taxpayers, because technically everybody's paying into this public land and therefore we can block people from coming into it. It should be regulated as private.
Yeah.
Or as if it were approximating a private society, is typically like how it's phrased.
I watched a Liquid Zulu video on that, and I'd say like he finally pushed me over the edge where I'm just like, okay, open borders is the private borders position, where it's just as a matter of consistency, it has to be taken with. But there is something to say that the supposed homesteading of public property by vagrants is not necessarily homesteading, because if you look at the facts of reality, someone prior to him homesteaded that, and they just haven't acted upon it. But being not omniscient, we could maybe say that the crack addict who's jerking off on the children's playground, who Dave Smith doesn't want there.
Are you saying he's not homesteading that?
No, because someone else did before him. Someone else definitely built that, and so they use that property as a means.
So,
to end,
but if you're okay, well, actually, we can. There's so much to get into there. I don't want to open this up. I really don't want to have to get into all that right now. Let's get back to this. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I agree, but couldn't one consider property collective for a business with a partnership? I mean, you have percentages of it. Like, it's not like you both own 100%.
Yeah. When it comes to even shares of a business, it is a bit of a misnomer. Not necessarily a misnomer. They've been using different definitions of ownership. They've been using different definitions of like shares of ownership, because there can only be one owner. There can be only one just victor in a conflict over property. When it comes to shares, or say you both paid for a car, you split it in half, and you both have like half ownership of it, quote unquote. One of you is the owner. One of you has a property title to many of the rights over that property. To the extent that you own a property title over that property, no one else is the owner of that property title. If I, as part of contract, lease you my pen for an hour, and then I try to take it back from you to use what is my pen, that is a violation. That is an aggression. You are the owner of that property right to that pen over that hour. I am not the owner of that property right over that pen for an hour, but I'm still the owner of that property.
Okay, so
same deal with like businesses. Just extrapolate that out to businesses.
Let's see. So I have the right to shoot my neighbor's kneecaps for treading on my property and breaking my window. Morals are subjective in my rules for my property.
You have the right to enact the same action upon your neighbor, and you have a right to have remediation to return you a state property or property. Or shooting him is an aggression. When it comes to, say, trespass, you have the right to remove him from your property using up to and including lethal force if it escalates to that point. You just murdering someone, or just like an excellent example of this, and a very touchy example of this, is what if I just used rape as a punishment for any aggression upon me? No, we could tell very obviously that that is aggression.
Hey, well, I mean, that sounds pretty good to me. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so Okay, Garen says, and I already read it, but like it's true. So I sympathize with anarchists who have ideas to formulate what a stateless society would look like, quote unquote. I just worry that in attempting to do this, most anarchists just end up constructing the same statist institutions. I've actually talked about this, and I've said sort of like it's like a socialized statism, if anything. Like these anarchists, like a lot of them have already been given like preconceived notions of what a society ought to look like. So therefore, like, or how like the rule of law ought to be implemented and so on. So like they sort of just like reformulated in their mind for that reason. Like they've been brought up in these like with state propaganda. So they're saying like, okay, well, obviously the only way to organize society without a state is to put all these institutions in that would simulate a state, basically.
I mean, there are functions of the state that are absolutely integral. Say just like, not necessarily, this one isn't necessarily integral, but it is very nice to have a fire department to prevent your building from burning down. It is very nice to have that service. It doesn't need to be provided by a state. Same with security and rights enforcement. When it comes to rights enforcement agencies, and this was getting back to a point you talk about, like how does it not become a monopoly? There are two things that need to be true. There needs to not be a state intervening into the market to favor it in a monopoly. And that is very difficult when states exist next to your anarchist society who can implement glowy psyops where they can pay a rights enforcement agency $1 billion to then take over the country. Yeah, that could happen.
So Garen says like ANCAPs tend to do this with private law and ANCOMs tend to do this with worker councils.
Yeah,
What's
private law
examples that he gives
societies,
for this?
David Freeman, not an ANCAP. He is,
but I mean, like he's talking about like Hoppe as well, who would like, you know, talk about like private law within a covenant community.
Covenant communities, the only right that they have to enforce their law is then trespass from that community. You do not have the right under natural law to enforce whatever punishment that you would like for that law. You are the king of your property. You cannot behead someone for trespassing on that property. You can remove them from their property and then trespass upon their property.
So Zach says Dave just needs to buy all the parks.
This is
yeah, then he can stop the homeless people.
Yeah, exactly.
Garen says it's pretty great, and I think he's talking about the Liquid Zula video. He essentially he essentially argues that open borders versus closed borders policy debate is a red herring, and the true argument is over property rights.
Yeah,
is that the Zula video? Is that okay? Zach says, as an agorist, I just want to do my thing, sustain for myself, and build relationships with those whom will allow it. Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I know your podcast starts out with a song. Who did that song for the intro of your podcast, man? I don't know, but it has a rap about that. Let's see. Zach says competitive insurance structure is more preferable to public monopolies.
Definitely. So you'd have the competition place, and then the other thing you would need is what I think is called like Austrian or Hoppian class theory, where you have the productive class and anti-productive class. The productive class is made of producers, traders, and homesteaders. The anti-productive class are anyone who petitions for or enacts the expropriation of property from the productive class. And I think I've brought this up before on the podcast, but the population needs to sufficiently accept, believe, whatever, Austrian or Hoppian class theory, such that they do not allow the anti-productive class to form again, to reform. It's the same thing with like Sharia law in like these other like Middle Eastern countries. We just need to introduce democracy. They totally won't just vote for what they had before because they still believe it. So to that extent, there needs to be a propagation of these ideas to be accepted into these people for them to be, I don't even want to say like ripe for being in a stateless society, but it's just like the average Joe is not cut out to be in a stateless society.
Yeah, see, no, Garen was talking about a Perb Island video, not the Zula video. Okay, see, no, he said check my previous comment. See, that makes more sense. I was like, really? Like, I didn't expect that. I'm trying to find where you commented Perb Island's video. Previous comment, bro. Like, I don't know. Okay. Anyway, like it, cause I didn't see you talking about Perb Island in there. I don't know if that message didn't go through or what, because I just don't see that. Let's see. And I don't remember reading that, but yeah, Zach did his intro. That's pretty nice, man. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay. So anyway, we're getting a bit off topic still. I did want to, like, we didn't even have that much more to go into as far as the prize stuff, except for this one last thing.
This is the topic.
Yeah, well, obviously that's why I have the super straight flag and like, you know.
I thought that was supposed to be like an ANCAP flag.
You know, it looks like the mutualist flag. And I actually had a tweet back in the day where I said like, new, like it was like new super straight flag just dropped, and it was a picture of the mutualist flag as my tweet. It was pretty good. Let's see. So yeah, okay. So last thing we wanted to talk about today, really like as a big topic, and then we can probably get into more comments and talk a bit more about this. Yeah, Per's a gem. And I'm gonna get to Garen's comment. I guess I'll get to it now. I have contentions with that class theory, but that's probably just for another episode. Yeah, it is. We'll have to do that again. Another ANCAP versus Agorist, man. Like part 2.
That it was just like talking back and forth, getting nowhere, man. Because it's just
no.
Like,
we need a more structured thing. I honestly need to read up a bit more, and I need to get better.
Claims, man.
I need to. I need to read up a bit more, and I need to get better at hosting a more, not debate, but like better facilitating the conversation. So federal judge issues ruling. Hold up. Let's see.
He's probably gonna roast me for that impression.
So federal judge. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, federal judge issues a ruling on in Florida state law banning trans medical care to minors. So a preliminary injunction was made against the state law, apparently, that was banning puberty blockers to minors. So I mean, it stopped for now until I guess this like goes through the court, and then there will be a decision, on what happens. I mean, like it can. I was gonna bring up the point that like it's not necessarily an ideological fight again. Like it could be that like DeSantis like in Florida like are like passing this to appease the cultural warriors in Florida, and then the judge is blocking this because maybe there's something that the state still needs to push, but like it can't if it's actually like saying like, oh, this is the law. So like it kind of needs to like, oh, here's what the courts are doing, as a sort of like a thing where it's like the societal effects maybe is what I'm saying of like that law were probably needed, like based on the public perception of such legislation, but at the same time wasn't actually meant to go through, maybe, or maybe not just yet. I don't know. But like, I think the problem here is with a lot of this is like viewing these two sides. Like, obviously we know the culture war by now, but like, a lot of the normies just view it as like two sides of Republicans and Democrats being at constant war. And it can be the same thing for like conservative and liberal, or like any sort of like dichotomy you can make, basically, where the state has these two ideologies that are competing within the federal and local and state governments at different levels, or even within the same level, if you're talking about elections, or even like policy passing. But like they want you to view it as like this constant war between one another, which is sort of like what the culture war is about. So like if the state has the opportunity to keep pitting people against one another, it's going to. So it makes sense, like at the, whatever the intentions with this bill are, or this law, that like it could just, who's to say it has anything to do with, what we're talking about right now? Like it could just be like there's other reasons for this thing to pass or not pass.
I think I wouldn't like just cut ideology out of it completely, because there's what I brought up before was like there are the range of possibilities which you're allowed to do by someone ahead of you, even if they don't like what you're doing, because stepping on you would be too much of a infringement, or not too much of infringement, but blow to legitimacy. They don't like that. They want to stay in power. Anything that delegitimizes them too much is also going to make their boss upset. Even if their boss likes necessarily what they did, but there's too much of like an optics fail, anything like that. So within that range of possibilities, which someone is allowed to do, because infringing on them would be illegitimate, they do act within their, not necessarily like ideological possession, but their ideological belief to enact what they see fit. A cop who, do I want to bring it back to a cop? But a cop who's really wants to stick it to the drug users may have like a chief who's like a bit hands off, where he's just like, you don't need to like arrest for like a gram of weed or some shit like that, or like an ounce of weed. But he's just like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go above and beyond because America. And then he arrests every single drug user he sees with the tiniest bit of weed, maybe even plants some on them himself. Or you could have the person who maybe finds a bit more than an ounce of weed, and he's the type of person to be like, no, it's like it's about an ounce, so I'll let you go for it. But that's just an example. Again, rare case of like officer.
It can be a lot harder if they have their body cam on, and that can be inspected. So
you can't necessarily tell an ounce of weed by like volume necessarily.
Okay. Well, I mean, just saying, like, they can get caught for that kind of stuff.
I mean, if you have just like a huge like bag, and it's just like.
My previous comment was, Ignis, I'd highly recommend this Per Byland video, and then I linked it. The issue might be that you put the link in. I don't know. If I'm saying it might be that you put the link in a live chat or in a YouTube chat. I think there might be an issue with that, or maybe it got held for review or something.
And I do not have the stream up.
Yeah, let me see.
Just looking at the stream.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it might just be a problem. Like I can't see it. Okay, so hold on. Let's see. Per is a gem. We already read that, I think. Legacy Zach says, or Zach, obviously, what did I say? The whole name. I see ACAB and agorism being co-regulator to each other. How do you mean?
And I also mean just because agorism is supposed to be like a tactic, specifically like the counter economics is a tactic, so it can be implemented no matter your ideological possession or belief. So you could be like an ANCAP agorist or whatever. Because I think
like anti-politics is a part of agorism.
Yeah, well, specifically like the counter economics part can be integrated into, say, any.
But you're just like an ANCAP that engages in counter economic action.
Sure. And I think that's to the degree where it's co-regulated, because I'd say the counter economics are more important than the anti-political part, because I don't think it necessarily goes hand in hand, because again,
I agree that's more important.
Fronts. Yeah.
Let's see. Counter economic aspect in regards of competing to ensure one cannot overcome the other.
I don't think that's part of counter economics. I think counter economics is specifically just like acting.
Yeah, you got to clarify that again.
Gray and black markets, not red ones. Against the interests of the state or something like that. Or
Garen says, "Can you give me an example? What were you just talking about?"
I wonder if they're having a conversation themselves.
He wanted an example, but example of what? Come on, like there's a bit of a delay, Garen. You got to clarify. But yeah, I mean, like, is he talking about? Because you already gave the example with the cop, but I don't know if that's what he meant specifically. Like, because there's just so much to unpack there. Yeah, I guess. I mean, he said he'll link you the video on Discord. So, I mean, yeah, put it in the Discord server. And Zach, I mean, I don't know if you're on Discord, man, but you should join the Discord server. It's in my last podcast I just did with Garen. It's on the channel. I have the link down there. If you need it, I can DM it to you on Twitter. Because I might take it out eventually so that feds don't join. I meant just counter it auto-corrected with economics. Oh, he just meant, okay, so he meant like it co-regulates in the regards of competing to ensure one cannot overcome the other. Okay, I see. I'll probably have to elaborate a bit, but I consider agorist theory and ANCAP theory to be mutually exclusive, although sharing many similarities. I agree.
I mean, like, I forget the specifics of your agorist class theory, but I know it's wrong. No.
Yeah, well, you know,
I hold the position that it is wrong.
There's too much of that going on. Let's see. He already gave an example. Never. Okay, sure. LOL. The economic aspect is obviously a tactic. Okay. Yeah, I mean, anyways,
I think there's an issue with agorism where it's like it doesn't propose like a positive example of what society will look like. It only proposes like a negative example of society is not this. In that it describes a certain point in time where it's sufficiently true that counter economics has overcome the need for the state or anything like that, or counter economic technologies have developed to a point where the state is not necessary and the state withers away, or whatever it is.
Okay, so it's not necessarily like the state being not necessary. It's like agorism is viewing like, you know, the methods that are currently used to like supposedly subvert the state and saying like, well, actually here are the ones that and Karen just said LMAO. Here are the ones that like are actually working. It's not going to be something political because it's viewing the state's organizational model as something that is actually not subject to just some ideology that enters it. It's actually viewing it as like and Garen explained this last time, that it's like a technical organization, and it's looking to maximize efficiency and expand its control over the political economy. So in order to do that, the state has to take certain actions, right? It can't just like do whatever. So like it's going to have to take those actions to do that. So in order for the state to exist, if it has to do that and it's around, I mean, it kind of implies that like, well, the state is doing that right now. So agorism is viewing like, you know, the subversion of that as what's, you know, the idea here. It's not necessarily what society is going to look like afterward in an anarchist society. It's not going to be, I mean, like, you know, aside from just like saying like this is still a state or this isn't a state, or these are aggressive means or these aren't. But it's also just looking at like the state and saying like, okay, well, here's why politics aren't going to work, because if this is true of the state's organizational model, then politics aren't going to work. And then it also looks at counter economics to view what the state is pushing, like, you know, like within society. It's like, okay, well, how do we subvert this? How do we subvert that? If you're not able to use politics, what are you able to use? I mean, obviously it's not things that the state has set up for you to use, because the white market is just something that's like, as we talked about in this episode, with everything that has been set up is exactly what you're told to do. So, I mean, if that's necessarily what you're told to do, and the state is trying to maximize its efficiency, and it's giving you these things to do, obviously for its societal control, it's only going to give you things that are allowable if it's going to help itself. So that comes into gray and black markets. And, some subversions some methods of subversion necessarily aren't illegal, but some are. Essentially it's just looking at what can be done to subvert the state if you're just looking at it as a whole.
But then so then you're focusing on like this point of like now what can be done to subvert the state. And I don't necessarily blame like the agorist position in not knowing specifically what technologies will develop to subvert the state, because that's a method that's like requires research and development, investigation, and the whole economy working to meet their ends and everything.
I mean, there are technologies now, as we've you can constantly point to like Bitcoin and 3D printed guns, like crypto and 3D printed guns. The state, is still looking to regulate cryptocurrency, and 3D printed guns again, or even 3D printing in general is a technology, and even things under the table, like working under the table, or running your business as much as you can without putting it on the books or paying taxes.
The state
for
only
it.
doesn't like enforce its edicts against that just because it doesn't see it as necessary enough to. Because
it's also the case that
it tracks Bitcoin transactions because it's got a public ledger. Even Monero transactions can be tracked to a degree, and that is the.
But it's so it's a technology that came out and essentially began a process of what will be even more effective at subverting that in the future. It's just, obviously the state's going to try and catch up. It's not just going to say, oh well, now we don't know
what needs to catch up.
Okay, but the thing is it's a point of it has that, but it's actually having to play catch up rather than being able to enforce it prior. Let's see.
To a degree, but I don't think there will ever be such a time where the state, not necessarily, I don't think there will ever be such a time, but it is unlikely where there will ever be such a time with the state as it exists that it will not be able to keep up with counter-economic technological advances.
There's only so much legwork it could put in tracking all of that. I understand if you're talking okay, well, there's such a restrictive society as China or North Korea or whatever, and then you have the inability to really, well, not inability completely, but it's extremely hard to do such a thing. But when we're in a system such as this, it's actually a lot easier to do so, I believe.
Yeah, but in that very instance, it's been talked about before, where it's just the state will do what it needs to do to survive. The state will do. State doesn't act, but state actors act in their interest, which is in the state's interest. And in such a case, the system that is better at countering counter economics is a more repressive system.
Yeah, and I don't disagree that that's what it will do. It's just that there must be some way to prevent that from being enforced. And that could be a little bit more than what we're talking about. And it could be, protecting yourself from the law enforcement, whatever that means to you. But yeah, no, basically it's just about defying what the law is and basically saying here is how you're supposed to avoid, going to prison for what the state decides is, what you're going to go to prison for.
And I think attacking their means of surveillance and enforcing their laws important. And I think that is a front that can be taken, possibly through political means, as a way to, and that requires a changing of the incentive structure around state actors as such to allow for that. But the specifics of how to do that is a matter of investigating reality itself, I'd say. But again, I would say increasing utility as under the state as it exists should be a secondary battle to trying to fight for liberty.
Okay, so we're gonna look at some more comments. Sell drugs, run guns. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, I'll just let that on the screen. But Tommy Jeff probably. Let's see. The only thing agorism elaborated as a consistent libertarian society would be the broadly he said the agora, where individuals can freely exchange without third-party interference.
How do you enforce against the red market?
And the market self-corrects for perturbations of aggression. Otherwise, it doesn't really elaborate what an anarchist society would look like.
How do you mean by market self-corrects, unless you mean like rights enforcement
A
specifically?
good way to look at agorism, Ignis, is that agorism is a value-free methodology. We treat the study of the state, practice, and ethics similarly to how Austrians treat the study of economies, because they're all in the domain of the social sciences. We're applying methodological dualism consistently. That's at least how I view agorism.
There's new answers coming in.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed, Garen. You can never know the exact future. We can only estimate. Let's see.
Because I don't know if you're with Ahmed on when it comes to being against rights enforcement agencies. I assume that's like where you went with that like conversation that we had earlier.
Yeah. Let's see.
Because didn't you get in more like the egoist aspect too?
Me myself, so I kind of like, it depends on what you're talking about with that. I mean, I'm into like Rand more so now, like just reading on that, like like the rational egoism stuff. It's, I need to have more of a conversation on that with Garen to see what he thinks, because he's been saying like there are parts he doesn't think are consistent with libertarianism. But I mean, like, it is kind of
a certain friend of ours about rational egoism. A certain friend of
yeah, I mean, like it is true that, like, it is best to act in your self-interest, which is just kind of, how I'm viewing it, right, from that perspective. Like, that, like, if you are doing something which can provably be actually harming you, even if you believe it's in your self-interest, it's actually in your self-interest to do that thing, despite it maybe not, or conflicting with what you think's reality, but isn't reality, right? Like, so, I mean, I think it's important to look at what reality is and go from there in order to formulate values that, can actually help you out. And live your life in a way that will bring about happiness, which I think also is like a very, like, that's like pretty much should be a person's goal to, like, be happy, but not in the sense of like, I can just be happy however I want, because there are things that will make you unhappy, even if you're like, I'm happy, right? I'm happy. Because, like, I mean, I think happiness and truth are very much intertwined. But yeah, that's, I mean,
ignorance.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, as opposed to that. Right. Like, I mean, I think that's a problem. And you know what? I don't know if I want to get into this. It's the pride thing, right? Like, but like we talked about
2 hours in.
I asked somebody this. I don't want to say who it is, but like, I was thinking, like, with the self-deletion, right? Rates. That's what they say. That's how you got to put it. For people that are like this mentally, like the Elliot Page, right? Ellen Page. Who claims that some guy attacked her a year ago on the same day as her book release. Like, oh yeah, a year ago, today's my book's coming out. And also a year ago, some guy attacked me and said, like, instead of saying this MAGA country, it's like, oh, like gay bashed you or something like, I don't know, something like that. Right. Said the F slur to you. But the problem is like, I guess I'm getting into, like, the mental health of some of these individuals in particular, Bougie Chuchi. The problem is, like, I asked, is it possible that, like, it gets to a point, like, I know this, the self-deletion rates are high, but is it possible that there's just so much technological advances with it? Like, people are able to change their hormones, and they're like, basically, like, one day you may just be able to walk into a lab and, like, get it, like, your chromosomes are changed, your whole genetic structure, right? Like, with that, like, with the social acceptance becoming bigger with it, with, like, so many things going on that are sort of reinforcing it within society. My question is, like, how is it that, like, these self-deletion rates are going to be high in the future? How is it going to be like this isn't accepted in the future? Isn't it just going to be that, like, eventually it just becomes a normal part of life that people view as, like, something that can be just fine for them? I mean, is it going to take a mental toll the same way it does now? Is it going to be different, that the fact that you're not having to, like, surgically alter yourself in the same way? Like, maybe it'll be a lot cleaner of a process and a lot more realistic.
By self-deletion, do you mean
like self-termination of your life?
Okay, because, like, you keep talking about, like, trans, like, surgeries and stuff like that. I'm just like, I'm mixing those two up.
No, I'm saying, like, the idea, once you get that surgery, your rates of that, are going to be impacted, like, well, I isn't it like pre and post is the same for, but, like, basically. I would say, like, but both of those are, like, people that have gone through hormones. So I think that's a problem as well. And, that, like, the issue I see here with it, is that, what is it? Like, once technology becomes so advanced that, people don't even think about it, like, it just becomes such an ingrained part of society, what, they're going to stop, like, doing this to themselves? Like, they're going to stop, like, ending themselves? Like, so I wonder, like, I have these questions about, how much happiness has to do with truth. Like, I mean, like, I get, like it should, but like to the point where people can alter their conditions so much so that it gets to the point where like, reality is unknown to people, like almost, not really, like it can still be known, but like they almost make it unknown to themselves by doing this. Like, where does it get in that? And I mean, the guy I asked, he was like, oh yeah, well, I mean, you'd have to be like high 24/7 for that to actually work. But I'm like, what about the tech? Like, I don't know that he actually views, like he recognizes what's happening here. But I mean, like I know he does, but it's like, do you like, are you really?
I mean, hey, in the future, there could be so many designer drugs to the point where
you can just be on sedation 24/7.
Yeah, 24/7.
You can be high 24/7.
Yeah, you won't gain a tolerance because there are just so many drugs that are pumping you full that you're like not taking the same one in
and I want to address some points that Justice isn't here, I guess, but like I wanted to talk about this, like some things that he said before, like where he talks about trans rights and he's all like, like the right of children to socially transition, and then also be on puberty blockers, right? Like that imagine how much that affects you. Imagine how much that, like, it doesn't just come about from some kid saying, yeah, this is what I want to do. No, I mean, like there are social influences in this, as we can recognize, but like, imagine, as a kid, what that's doing to your mind, right? Like what the social transition stuff, the reinforcement of it, what the hormones are doing to your mind, right? Like, what is this doing to you? Why else would, you be stuck in this for the rest of your life? It's not like you're just going to withdraw and be like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And it's not like the puberty blockers are actually reversible. Those people are claiming they are. I mean, like it's the same drug again, like used to chemically castrate people. So like, but the problem is like, it's kind of a blind view that like, oh, the sedation's good actually. And then once people like take this, once people get into this, it's like they can just get out at any time, really. They don't have to be like this. This is something ingrained in them from the beginning. It's crazy. But like, now that society's headed in this direction, again, but now that society's headed in this direction, like, where do you see this going?
There's multiple outcomes. What I would hope for is specifically that we address the, endocrine disruptors in our like water supplies, and our food supplies, everything
birth
like
control.
Because I think a lot of the issues like with our mental health are the endocrine disruptors that are just flooding through our system that we are seeing, like barely starting to see the effects of. We will see it generations down the line to the extent like that.
They need more testosterone.
Yeah.
The low T is killing us.
Yeah, it is.
Somebody's going to clip that. It's like, look, these guys admit they're low T. No, I'm saying men. Let's see. Even any man alive today, his T is affected. Yeah. Even if you have high T for a man today, your T is affected.
Sperm counts are so low.
Yeah. Anyway, I need to have a kid before there's 2 credit cards worth of microplastics in me. Let's see. Happiness can be found in any forms so long as you don't harm anyone in that process. But like, that's the thing. Like, what if you're harming yourself? Is that like happiness?
Yeah, it's like, what is true happiness, quote unquote, is just something that I think I'm wholly unprepared to talk about or like know whatsoever, because I haven't necessarily investigated that, nor found it necessarily, other than of course.
Psycho? Who's he talking about, Psycho? The guy that said it's okay to socially transition kids? Because if so, is that harming others? And why? Let's see. I will read Garen's chat, which doesn't have to do with this, but it has to do with agorism. So we'll just go back into that for a second. Konkin himself was in favor of competing arbitration firms, which would be an area where I disagree with him. I agree with arbitration. I'm just skeptical of them existing on a scale of a firm/corporation. Yeah, that's pretty much it. For arbitration itself. But like, we were also asking about rights enforcement agencies, what you thought about that, Garen. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll just wrap up with this talking about like, if you had any more comments on the episode in general, like the prize stuff, like we talked a lot about the other stuff, but I'm talking about the focus of the show.
Yeah. I would say just, if you're trying to find happiness, there's a tried and true method of going the traditional route, of having a meaningful relationship with a person of the opposite sex, having children with that person, and then eventually passing with your family surrounding you. And that sounds like a pretty good life to me.
Okay. Well, those are them. Wait, hold up. Those are the drugs from Fallout.
Oh, Psycho.
Yeah.
What
okay.
I
see.
Mentats?
Buff out.
I gotta
said
take
Buff
my
out
Mentats.
And Rad X.
What were some other some of the crazy ones? I don't remember.
I don't know, guys.
I
We've
got
been here
my
for 2
great
hours, but
men
like
hat.
shout out to like the 3 or 4 people that have been here the whole time. I mean, like, those are small numbers, but like, I don't care. You guys are my people, and you're here at 11:33 p.m. EST. One day there'll be more people, and you'll be like the people that are in the chat. Like, yeah, I was here first. What about it? But anyway,
we gotta have like the tiers of people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna get promoted to tier 2 immediately. It's, starting once I create tier 2. Yeah, exactly. You guys are the people. But yeah, pretty much it. I don't know. I'm not too crazy on where this is going as far as our prospects societally in the near future. Long term, yeah, I could see an argument for why this will fail anyway. But yeah, I don't know. that's pretty much for today. I guess Pride Month is canceled for real. Like we destroyed it as much as we could. We were so, yeah, good show, gents. Thank you so much, Zach. It was an enjoyable episode, says Jason. Wow, you stuck around the whole time. Thank you. Yeah, no, Garen's right. Trad wife, trad life. There we go. Well, I don't know. We should have a discussion on that too. We were going to, and again, #1 hated show by feminists. Okay, like we have been canceled by the feminists. One specifically. Anyway,
perhaps know this.
The mere mention of my name brings wrath to this one person, and she won't come on the show anymore. And we were going to have a woman on the show for the first time, and it was going to be episode 13 because that's so fitting to have a woman on the show for the first time, but it didn't happen.
This, I don't blame you. I
did nothing. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the live. Let me know if you want another live. Reject the trad life, embrace the goth wife. Thank you so much for watching. Tune in for the next live show. I'll probably be back in a couple of weeks after I'm back from Utah. We'll talk about whatever's going on, and plus this stuff. If Garen, you want to come back on, we'll try and find a time for you. But yeah, make sure you like, comment, share the episode again, and remember that civil offense is the key to winning.